Many years later, after I've seen all these kinds of science fiction movies, I've come to understand that as teachers, we definitely need to recognize what different students enjoy doing and what types of activities they enjoy doing. Some students might like creativity and expressing themselves through pictures, through gestures, through acting, through creative things, spontaneous things. And then there are these kinds of students who might prefer more well-structured classrooms, more traditional types of classrooms, or more traditional types of activities, let's say, not classrooms. So again here, we need to find the balance between the modern or the productive or the creative and the traditional, the rational, the structural. We need to find the right balance and expose our students to everything. Teachers can do this most effectively by using a range of tools, not just one thing. As I said before, the book alongside with the gadgets, the kinesthetic realia alongside with the painting, or the interactivity of the classroom alongside with, I don't know, reading stories to them or acting stories to them. We definitely need to include a lot of different variety in our classrooms. We can no longer presume that teaching means a set of students sitting down behind desks and a teacher behind the desk holding a book like that and reading from inside a book, or telling students come to the board and write certain things. Education shouldn't be like this, and educators should not perceive themselves as the almighty beings of the classroom who are set there to judge the students. No, I'm afraid that things have changed. Educators should perceive themselves as the assistants. They are the assistants who help the students educate themselves. They are the people who provide the means to the students to educate themselves. And despite the fact that I'm talking to a camera, I can probably hear most of you thinking that, okay, and how do we do that when we're talking about children at kindergarten or primary level? How do they become independent at that level? They can't, of course, not spontaneously and on their own, but given the right activities, and if we take their hand and we make them think on their own from the beginning with simple little things in the beginning, eventually they will become creative at secondary school and at university. But if we brainwash them and spoon feed them from day one, what do you think is going to happen when they're in day 100? They will still be expecting the teacher to walk in the classroom and say, open your books, do exercise 1, read exercise 2, do exercise 3, read, answer, repeat, bye-bye, that's it. That's not education, and that benefits only a very small minority of your students. And what happens to the rest? They get classified as lazy, weak, stubborn, and all other kind of negative things, where it could be just as simple as, teacher, teach me the way I learn. So we don't go to the teacher, leave me alone, as in the Pink Floyd song goes, because they will drop out eventually and they will be bored. I have observed so many different educational systems and so many different classes all around the world. I've observed classes in Latin America, in Mexico, in Colombia, in Russia, in Mongolia, in Turkey, in Italy, in Greece, you name it. I've been to many, many different classrooms. And I have seen lessons from children at kindergarten all the way up to university lectures, and the way they teach language to different kind of students and different kind of educational systems. Sadly, I have to say that in many cases, and this especially goes to students from secondary level onwards, the teachers tend to focus on the tree and they miss the forest. Let me explain what I mean. In some cases, when we have a lesson, we tend to focus too much on doing a specific exercise, whether this exercise is creative or traditional, that's irrelevant. We focus on doing one exercise and spending 20-25 minutes dealing with the same task, boring or not, as I said, that's irrelevant for now, and asking every single student to report back to the class for this specific exercise, wasting a large portion of my didactical time, and then by the time I want to move on and do my rest of the lesson plan, time's done, time's finished. What does that mean to tell you? And that could create either a boring class if the exercise is too traditional, let's say, or too non-creative enough, let's say, or at least for the creative students, or it could create a one-sided effect in my classroom. So it doesn't cater for all my students. Our classrooms and our tasks should be short, simple, concise, and a mixture between traditional and creative, and a mixture of using different tools in our classrooms. And yes, this is achievable using the right material, using material that provides this challenge, let's say, for the teachers. And the reason why I say challenge is because from what I've observed from teachers all around the world, teachers tend to stick on the book and they literally hold the book like a shield in front of the students. I don't know if you've ever done this consciously or subconsciously. We tend to teach, whether we're writing on the board or whether we're teaching our students, and we hold our books like that, sometimes, you know, with our answers or our notes on those, especially young and experienced teachers. This is their shield. We look at our books, we look at our notes, this is our shield, and we always teach from that. We spend too much time looking at that and not looking at our students in many cases. And what happens here is sometimes we can either fall out of topic, be misled, or, as I said, create boring lessons. It's not the teacher that needs to be doing all the talking in the classroom nowadays. It's the interaction that's more important. And not necessarily even with us, even amongst themselves. The peer learning, helping students teach each other, that's what's important. Helping them interact in the language that they're learning, that's what's important. If you can achieve it, if you use certain techniques and if you use certain steps that I've been talking about several times in my seminars, these are achievable. Or even if you read the teacher's guides, these steps and techniques are mostly described in the teacher's guides there, and you can see how you can help the students group or pair or do flexible group type of activities in order for them to work together. Sometimes they need to work alone and concentrate and do things on their own, and there are other times where students need to work together, and both of them are equally valuable techniques that we use in the classroom. The thing that we need to remember here is that everybody needs to participate one way or another. Everybody needs to be involved in the classroom. Lack of involvement means boredom. So going back to what I said before, sometimes teachers focus on the tree and miss the forest. I have observed, I'm not going to tell you the country, recently a lesson where a teacher has spent something like 1 hour, 20 minutes to do a reading passage, and in this reading passage, they were talking about food or something I don't even need to mention here, and they were basically reading the passage, translating the passage, answering comprehension questions on the passage, then copying the passage, dictating the passage, checking each other's dictation. They spent 1 hour, 20 minutes doing one exercise. Yeah, in a variety of ways, but still, one exercise, a reading task. How interesting do you think this was for the students? Let me tell you, the student right next to me, during the day that I was observing, he was actually sleeping on the desk. And I cannot blame him. I felt very, very sleepy during that lesson. So instead of focusing on the tree, see what else is in your lesson, see what other things you need to do, and not just focus on one passage continuously. There are so many different things and creative things that you can do in the lesson that you might be missing the forest when you're focusing on one tree continuously.